everyone, welcome to our YouTube channel. So as you know, we are discussing about the various theories. Today we are going to discuss about new criticism. So this is the introduction to new criticism. New criticism basically is a movement that came after your Russian formalism. New criticism is an American movement. Okay, so it is also known as the textual criticism, and it is considered to be one of the most influential literary movement in the 20th century. It is supposed to be very specifically centered around America. So it is an American movement. The term new criticism initially was not used. Right, it is a kind of a study where they actually pay a lot of focus on text, and they thought that the text is something that is cut off from the outside reality and you have to read the text per se. So text is a real image that is there, a real object that is there in front of you, and you can decode it and use it to the greater extent. That is called as the new criticism. This new criticism initially was not a movement, though they were not coined as a movement, though they were doing the analysis like this. But we have John Crow Ransom, who in his book then used this term new criticism, and from there the term became very prominent, especially in the Americas. So the term new criticism came into use in literature after John Crow Ransom, the American critic who published his book, The New Criticism, that came out in 1941. So in 1941, he wrote this book, and it is very important to know it. In the New Criticism, Ransom analyzed three very important contemporary critics. Often questions are asked like that, so you should know कौन से critics के बारे में उन्होंने बात की है. So in the New Criticism, Ransom actually analyzes three contemporary critics: T.S. Eliot, I.A. Richards, and Winters. Right? So these three are the three canonical contemporary critics जिनके बारे में उन्होंने अपने work में बात की है. Often you will read that T.S. Eliot and I.A. Richards were the forefathers of new criticism as well. Right? Also, and he in his book makes a very powerful appeal for the ontological criticism as well. For Ransom, ontological criticism informs the essence to find the beginning of the text or the poem. The belief is that the text has its own ontology and that its own existence is there. So rather than knowing how the form is important, how the words are important, how the playing of the words are seen, they focus more on the text. So Russian formalists were paying more focus on the form of the written words, right? Rather, these people believe that the text has the birth of itself. The text is also important, and that is the ontological criticism. How the text came into being. The text is an entity on its own. Ontological criticism infers the essence to find the beginning of the text or the poem, right? So that is ontological criticism, and Ransom talked about it. Then the instance of the objectivity of a text is self-sufficiency and the organic unity assured a unique way to read the text. This means that one text is a very unique entity on its own. That text has an existence of its own, and it is self-sufficient. So you do not need anything that is from outside. You do not need any intentions from outside. You do not need historical references from outside. You do not need to know about the writer, the author. What is more important is the organic things that are sufficiently assured in the text. So they talk about the unity, the unique way in which you can read the text, an entity on its own. You look at it as an autonomous object. The new critics regarded the poem or the piece to be the autonomous object that is examined in its own terms. So you will look at the thing that you are reading, you will analyze it. That is what? That is an autonomous object in front of you. A text, a poem, it depends. Then what is a text according to them? A text is a complete work of art. It's a work of art. It is beautifully written and you have to analyze it. That is nothing more or less to it. So it is complete work of art. it validate out of interpretation. You interpret things and it is going to be validated out of interpretation. You analyze it to get the true meaning. The things that are written in front of you maybe not be so readable. Maybe you do not have the meaning just by reading it in one go, but you have to read it between the lines to learn it completely, to engrossed in it completely, to know the meaning, to know the true meaning of that thing. That is your new criticism. There are some precursors of new criticism. These people were writing about, they were reading the text in a manner, and then Ransom talked about it and gave these words new criticism. So we have T.E. Hume, we have Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot, I.A. Richard, the one who gave practical criticism. He talked about practical reading, that close reading is something that I.A. Richard started to talk about. Then we have William Ibsen, F.R. Lewis. These are considered to be the precursors of new criticism. F.R. Lewis, William Ibsen, I.A. Richards, T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, and T.E. Hume. So what are you going to do today? You are going to read more about the precursors of new criticism, the forefathers of new criticism, or you can say the two most important fathers of new criticism are what? These people are T.S. Eliot and I.A. Richards. Then who are someone who started to write about new criticism in a lot of, with a lot of zeal and enthusiasm. So the prominent new critics were, we have John Crowe Ransom, Ellen Tate, who talked about tensions in poetry. We have R.P. Blackmore, Kenneth Brooke, who talked about heresy of paraphrase. We have Robert Penn Warren, William Epson, Rene Welk, V.K. Wimsett, and Bretsley. So these are the people who are prominent critics of new criticism. They represent this literary movement. It is also your homework to read a little bit more about these people. In the coming videos, we'll discuss one critic and the various words and works written by them. But you need to also read about these people because sometimes they also give statement questions. So it is important to read it. Reasons for the rise of new criticism. Why new criticism rose? So there was widespread dissatisfaction both in England as well as in America with the contemporary critical practices of reading literature. So there was a lot of unrest that was seen, and this was widespread there in England as well as in America. The imagined school has a profound influence on new criticism. T.E. Hume's Speculation is regarded as one of the most important prose document that ushered the rise of new criticism. So it is T.E. Hume who wrote this work, Speculations, because of which the way of reading that came into picture. The vogue started. In his work, Hume argued that the poet's main concern must be his own craft. So he started to talk about the speculations that are there, and he said that a poet ki imagination is more important, and he should focus on one thing, and that is craft. That is the way he or she is writing and the works are written. So Speculations by T.E. Hume gave rise to new criticism, and this way of reading that is termed as new criticism. The basic tenets of new criticism. Hota kya hai new criticism? What are the things that incorporate in the way of reading, in this way of reading the text? New critics regard the poem or a work of art as a thing in itself. So it is detached from the surroundings and the text is the thing itself. And the critic must concern with the text and should concentrate completely on the text. The critic must concentrate on the text or the work that is there. The function of the critic is to analyze, interpret, evaluate the piece of art, the work that is there. The critic must engage in close textual study without considering any extraneous factors. So, bahar ke koi factors should not influence the reader. The intentions of the reader are invalid here. The intentions of the writer, the author, is invalid. Bibliographical references are invalid, right? It is invalid to read about history. Why is this text written? What is more important is only to concentrate what is written on the paper, what is written in front of you. This is more important. That is why it is a piece of art which you can interpret according to yourself, right? A poem has both form and content. One poem has a form that is important for the Russian formalists. It also has a content, and both should be closely studied and analyzed before proper understanding of the true meaning of the poem. Before you analyze and you take out the true essence of the poem, what is more important is to distinguish that what is the form and what is the content. फॉर्म के ऊपर कौन फोकस कर रहे थे? इट इज द रशियन फॉर्मुलिस्ट हु वर फोकसिंग मोर ऑन द फॉर्म, एंड it is the new critics who said that no, the form and the content both are very important, right? So close reading of the text is more important. You need to read the text in greater detail to understand it, and form and content both when come together will give you the essence, the correct picture of what the writer wanted to say. Therefore, only close analysis of the words can bring out the true meaning of the entire poem. And here Kenneth Brooke becomes important, because he said that there should not be heresy of paraphrasing. You cannot paraphrase the things as well. The poem has so much to tell you. Please do not make it too crisp so that it loses its own essence. You need to understand the things that are written on the paper by directly getting in touch with it. You have to understand the form, the content. You have to understand the complete work of art in itself to know the real meaning. The new critics are opposed to historical and comparative methods of criticism. Historical methods के बिल्कुल ही खिलाफ थे ये लोग. They were against it. That the new critics are anti-impressionist and anti-romantic in themselves as well. The most simplistic definitions of new criticism identify it as a critical movement that propagates the idea of art for art's sake. So here you are not doing art for joy's sake. It is art for art's sake. That means literature has an aesthetic value. It is an aesthetic object, and you can understand it in according with the words that are written on the paper. In the words of F.R. Lewis, new critics focus strongly on the words on the page. What is more important? Words that are there on the page. New critics are interested in how the parts of a text are related to create, how the parts that are there on the paper will create a kind of harmony, order, tension, paradox, and ambivalence, as well as ambiguity. So there are various ambiguities that will give you a better meaning. There are tensions that are created. And Alan Tate said that without tension, there can never be a good poetry. There needs to be tension so that the reader is engrossed. What you need to do is to read between the lines, to know the things better. There are paradox, there is harmony. So what they are talking about? They are talking about unity. Unity, and there is harmony, there is order, there is tension, paradox, ambivalence, as well as ambiguity. Whatever is written on the page is more important. There is a search for meaning. I.A. Richards' concept of behavior of words became very important. Ibsen's 7 categories of ambiguity with their subdivisions are important. So I.A. Richards said that behavior be important hai. How you write the things are important. How you interpret the things are also important. And he paid a lot of focus on close reading and emotions of the reader. Jean Crow Ranson's principle was related to the texture of the work that is there, and Robin Penn Warren was preoccupied with talking about symbols. Ellen Tate talked about the theory of tension. So I.A. Richards, practical criticism, close reading. Ibsen's ambiguity and subdivisions of ambiguity. Ranson talked about the texture of the work. Robert Penn Warren talked about the symbols. Ellen Tate talked about the tension that is there. Then there are some of the important literary magazines that are there. These literary magazines are important as well as they are asked in the paper also. These magazines are very closely attached to the movement New Criticism. We have the Southern Review. It is a quarterly literary magazine that was formed by Robin Penn Warren in 1935. Then we have the Kenyan Review. It was founded in 1939 by John Crow Ransom. Then we have the Sevilla Review. This was an American literary magazine established in 1892, right? By 1892. And then we have another in 1942, Ellen Tate as advising editor, and Light was revolutionized the magazine's place in American letters as they focused more on new criticism, right? So these are the three important magazines that are there, and these are often asked in the paper also. The Southern Review being the most important one, right? So with this, I will just end today's video. Let us quickly see what all were the things that were there. So we discussed about textual criticism, which is often called as new criticism. What new criticism is? New criticism is the close reading of the text. This new criticism came into picture when it was coined by John Crow Ransom in his work, The New Criticism, that came out in 1941. It is also related to ontological criticism. He discussed and talked about T.S. Eliot, I.A. Richards and Winters. Then there are some of the tenets of new criticism that we discussed, and there are precursors. So we have T.E. Hume, Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot. We have I.A. Richards, William Ibsen and F.R. Lewis. There are some critics who talk about it. We have John Crow Ransom, Ellen Tate, Blackmore, Kenneth Brooke, Robert Penn Warren, William Ibsen, Welk. We have W.K. Wimsett and Bradley, etc. Then we have T.E. Hume, who talked about speculation and how the craft of the writer is very important in his work, Speculation, because of which this way of reading came into picture. Then we studied how close reading and textual analysis is important rather than the outside factors. Poem, the form of the poem and the content of the poem, both are important to understand the meaning. We also discussed how harmony, order, tension, paradox, ambiguity, all are important. And this slide being the most important one, we have I.A. Richards' concept for behavior, Ibsen's 7 ambiguities, we have John Crow Ransom's textual analysis, Robert Penn Warren's symbols, and Ellen Tate's tension. Right? I hope this is clear. And if you have any doubt, you can ask me that in the comment section and I'll surely reply to you. Thank you.